All right, just quick review for the recording. We did a curl request to example.com with -v. This just displays additional information, specifically the type of request that we're getting and what we're being responded, what's the response back. So when we talk about HTTP requests, notice how we have a GET followed by the URI, the HTTP protocol, the user agent. Again, this is what we're sending, where we're sending it from, what we're using, so which is curl, almost like what type of browser we're going to be using. And then there's a space right here. There's literally an explicit space right here. And then we have the response headers. So the response of what we're getting back from the server, from example.com, is the HTTP protocol. We have the status code. So what's the status of the request? And we have got 200, 300, 400, 500, and like plus. So it could be a 200, which is generally a status code of it's okay, which explicitly says okay. 500 usually is like internal server error. What's another status code that you're relatively familiar with that you might have seen?
The infamous 404.
The 404, like resource not found. So you'll see 404. You'll see 300s. I think 300s are redirects. So you go to visit a website, it gets a 300 or 302, and then redirects you to another page. So you'll see a bunch of different status codes. So you can even say HTTP status codes, and there's a bunch of them. I think there's one that's like a teapot as well, just for fun. So information responses, successful responses, redirections, client error responses. So you can literally see all the different status codes: 200, 201, 202, 302. So 301 moved permanently found. This, you might see this one occasionally. So is there a teapot? Oh, there we go. So there is literally a status code. 418 is I'm a teapot. The server refuses to attempt to brew coffee with a teapot. Engineers way back in the day thought this was funny and actually created a 418 I'm a teapot return. Okay, it's like this error is a reference to hypertext coffee pot control protocol defined in an April Fool's joke. Oh, okay. Yeah, anyway. So there's a bunch of different status codes. And then there's a bunch of different headers as well, like cache control, content type, what's actually being returned. So here, what is being returned is HTML. So you can see content type, text/HTML, the date, current date. I don't know what E tag stands for. Expired, last modified, server. So content length, 1256. And then there's another explicit space. So just notice where the spaces are. Just keep that in mind in the future. There's a space, and then there's the body of, then there's like the actual HTML. You can also look at, if I come over here,
what's the length of that, the character count of the HTML?
I think it's in bytes.
That makes more sense.
Yeah. So if I do, and you can see all of this stuff, if I go to headers, so I can, let's just compare when I do that curl at the very top, I can do I'm doing a get request to the URI of just a / to HTTP protocol, the host user agent. Here, the headers, the request URL example.com request method is a get request, status code 304. Let's see, where is that? Remote address. Oh, here it goes. So we'll go with the request headers. That's what I'm looking for. So we're going to example.com. We're doing a get request. The path is just a / and you can see all this other stuff that is being sent through. But if you look over here in this top part, we have user agent curl because we used curl to visit this example.com. But here, the browser also sent all this other stuff over to this SEC, whatever. I don't know what any of this stuff is, but the user agent is Mozilla.5. Wait, is this the response? No. So the response, I'm sorry, the request headers, the user agent, it's either Mozilla, this Apple WebKit, or Chrome 9.9 or Safari. So I'm doing this from a Chrome browser. So the user agent that I'm requesting this example.com from is Chrome right here. And then you can see the response headers, very similar to the response headers here. Content type. Is content type in here? Where's content type? Anyway, so it doesn't show content type in here, but it has to know what kind of content type it's being displayed. And then the response or the preview, specifically the response, is the actual HTML. So you can inspect everything. Where's it in here? All right. Or so you can do that all in here, but there's another tool that developers use a lot, and that's called Postman. And if you haven't downloaded Postman, it's free. Postman is a way we can send HTTP requests to test out our applications on the web or even on your local machine. So I can literally do a GET request to that example.com here. Again, this is Postman. I'm doing you can see all the different types of requests there are, but I'm going to be doing a GET request, and you can see all the different headers I'm sending. So user agent is Postman. I'm accepting everything. I can do connection, keep alive, and I can send stuff in the body of the request, but I'm not doing that because I'm doing a GET request. And if I click send, now you can see I get the body of the request, which is that HTML that I get back. So Postman is a good tool to use. I highly encourage you getting it. So with GET requests, the only way to send data to the backend or to that request is, say if you wanted to send some data to it, with GET requests, you need to send it in the URL. So if I wanted to send data to example.com, I would have to send it up here, like data equals something. So with GET requests, if I want to send something specifically to the server, GET requests, if I'm doing it via GET request, I have to do it via the URL. If I'm doing a post request, which is typically where I want to send data to, when I want to send data to the backend, with post requests, you can send, or the primary way you send data to the backend is in the body of the request. And we'll show you shortly. So right now we've just been going to example.com. But if I go to JSON placeholder, which is a good thing, a good way to like test out your APIs. It's essentially just mocks data. So, for example, if I go to curl, so I'm just going to clear the terminal. If I do curl -v, and since I'm doing a get request and I want to grab a to-do item and just the very first to-do item here, again, I'm sending this data back to the server and I'm doing a get request. So I have to send it in the URL. If I send it, you can see that all this data is being sent back. So all this is, I don't know what any of this is. It's probably whatever. It's not really that important. But once I get down to the actual arrows, I'm doing a get request to the URI. So everything that comes after the .com or .org. So I'm doing to-dos. It's using HTTP protocol 2 version 2. The user agent is a curl. And then what is being sent back is the content type. Before, when we're using example.com, it was sending back text and HTML. But now it is sending back at JSON, JavaScript object notation. And you can see what is being sent back are these values right here. User ID 1, ID 1, title completed false. And I can visit this JSON placeholder up here. And you can see this is what is being sent back to me when I visit this. It's JSON. Questions?
So does every API return JSON?
No, most of them do. The ones you'll be working with do, but they can send back XML, text. There's a bunch of different stuff they can send back. They can send back videos, like stuff like that. But you'll be utilizing APIs that send back JSON, which is what this looks like. So majority of the time, 99% of the time, you'll be using APIs that will send back JSON. Most APIs send back JSON or give you the option to at least send back JSON or some other type. And it also depends on industry as well. So if you work in the financial industry, like at banks and stuff, a lot of their APIs they send back XML. But JSON, that's your go-to. So I've got this user ID title completed false. So that's just me visiting up here. I can go and use Postman to do the same thing. So here, I'm going to do a get request and I'm going to send that. And now you see what I get back here in the body of the request. So we've been doing get requests. Again, get requests. If I want to send data to the backend and I want them to use that data depending on what I send back, such as the to-do, I'm getting to-do item 1. Maybe I want a to-do item 2. You can see I've got now to-do item 2. If I'm doing a get request, which you will more often than not be using for APIs, some of them you have to use post requests, but majority of the time, the easy ones are get requests. You'll send that data via the URL. So, but we've just been doing get requests so far. Let's talk about post requests. So if I actually want to save something to the back end. So I come down here, I can see, so I could do posts, comments, albums. Again, this is that JSON placeholder, photos. I can do a bunch of GET requests. So I can grab all the posts if I wanted to, or all the to-dos. Let's actually grab all the posts. Posts. You can see I get an array of objects of all the posts. You can see all the posts I get. I can also do posts. So let's see. This should gotta be a guide. I'm just going to quickly try to look for a post request, getting a resource, listing all resources, creating a resource. This is what I want. So if I wanted to create a post, I'll need to go to /posts, which I'm currently at, but I'm saving something to the database. So what type of request do I need to use?
Post.
A post request. So I'm going to create a post request. Now I need to actually send some data to the post request. Like, so it looks like here, just I need to send a title, a body, and a user ID. So I can look at the headers of what I want to send. Wait, where is it? So content. Do I have content type? Does it have content type in here? No. So don't worry about that. But if I want to send a data to the backend using a post request, I need to send it in the body of the request. So the body of the request, just remember, that's what I request. There'll be a space. And then after the space is where the body of the request will be. This just shows the GET request, space, there. Then the response headers, and then the response body. But if I wanted to send something using a post request, it'd be this followed by a space and then the body of the request. So for the body of the request, there's a couple ways you can do it. You can do it in text, JavaScript, JSON, HTML, XML. We're going to be sending it in JSON. So I'm going to say user ID. I think since this is, I'm going to say 1. What is it? What does it say I need for this example? Title, body, and user ID. So again, JSON, you need to use double quotes. This is a post request. And then title. This is my post. So I'm doing a post request to /posts. And in the body of the request, I'm sending this data as JSON. Now, if I send it, I'll receive something back from the server, either like, hey, you successfully posted it, or you got an error. So if I send that, I get a successful response back because I actually get what the ID, which is 101. So that means I successfully saved it. Now in the database, I'm post 101. If I had an error, such as like something like that, syntax error, unexpected token, and JSON at position 94. And then you can kind of see what the errors are. You'll occasionally, when you get errors back, you'll get a bunch of HTML back typically, if you get an error in the request. All right. Any questions on making post requests to an API? using Postman. There are free APIs out there that don't require you to create an API key. Let's look at it. Whoop. So right here, there's a bunch of free APIs. Let's see if you actually need an API key. We'll talk about API keys. So let's look at, what is this? Cocktail database. Awesome. So I'm going to do a GET request to this cocktail database. And does anybody have a favorite cocktail?
Old fashioned.
Nice.
I was gonna say that.
Is it old? You can either do old. What's that?
Fashioned.
Yeah, I'm just wondering for the space. So first, does anybody know, is it %20 for spaces? Well,
Oh, that seems right. I could look it up.
yeah, there's,
I think-
all right. So yeah, with URLs, you're technically not allowed to have spaces in there. So I think it's %20. That like indicates, I think
It's %20
okay, cool.
or
So-
plus.
Oh yeah, that's what I want. I'll just do plus. So if I send that, hopefully it all works. I've never done this before. Cool. So I didn't send it in the body of the request because I'm doing a GET request. GET requests don't even look at the body when I'm sending information because it's not possible. But I did the cocktail database API JSON v11 search dot PHP question mark S, I guess stands for search, equals old fashioned or old fashioned. Did I do old fashioned? Is it old fashioned or old fashioned? I don't even know. It doesn't really matter. But look what I get back. I get a JSON response with a drinks key that is an array that has one element in it or one value or one index in it that is also a object where I get a drink ID, STR drink, old fashioned, category cocktail. I don't know what any of this stuff is. Old fashioned glass. It gives us instructions, place sugar cube with an old fashioned glass. That's pretty cool. Ingredients, bourbon, some bitters, sugar, water, and it also gives us a link to some probably images. So I can probably display this image. Nice. On my web page if I wanted to. It gives me some measures. And it also gives me, is that the same image? Okay, some other stuff. So that's a free API that y'all can use that does not require an API key. All right, let's look at some other ones. These are kind of cool. Fat Cat, USA data, IPJ, memes. Let's look at some memes. So get memes. So here, so I think I may have mentioned this like way early on, especially when like some APIs, third-party APIs, that's what these are. They're third-party APIs. You didn't create them. Some other company made them. Third-party APIs, some of them have really good documentation. Some of them, other ones have like really crappy documentation. Google has really great documentation. There's other, Ticketmaster doesn't have that great documentation. But yeah, some of them have good documentation. So here, so I can go do get memes here and run that, do a get request. So success data. So again, every API will respond in a different way depending on however their developers want that API to respond by. So you got Drake hot dog bling. I can actually look at that if I wanted to. Okay. So there's a bunch of different APIs. Anybody things to do? Cool. So this one looks like it. I can random. Okay, I'm just looking at these. Sorry. Does anybody have any questions about APIs and grabbing data from an API? No. Did Chad show y'all how to have it like display on a web page on Saturday?
I don't believe so.
I'm sorry.
I don't believe so. He just like talked about promises and async await.
Okay. Let's quickly get some stuff to display on a web page then. All right, where did it go? All right. We'll use Bootstrap. So I'm just going to use that JSON placeholder. That should be the easiest. So I'm going to create an app.js file. And I'm just going to create a button. Bootstrap button. I'll use this primary button. All right. Open. All right. So I've got this button, click me. Whoop. And when I click that button, I want it to display a bunch of, let's look at JSON placeholder. Let's look at that guide. I think I can do like images or something. Oh, album photos. Maybe I'll just do albums. Does albums work? No. So I'll do album 1 photos. I'm just going to look at this image. Okay, it just has that bunch of different images. So when I click that button, so I'm going to just do an ID of get images. And then in my script, I'm going to do app.js. I don't know what this integrity, all this stuff does. I don't think I need that. So in my app.js, I'm going to split the screen. I'm going to console log loaded. Where'd it go? Drakey, get out of here. Whoop. I don't know where that index went. All right. So I'm just going to open up the console to see if that was loaded. So when I click that button, I want it to load. I want to get this information and render the thumbnail URL or something. Just render all of that, I guess. So in here, I can do document.getElement by ID. I can say get images. And I can run an on click on there. I can either add an event listener or I can add an on click event listener or handler on it like so. And I'm just going to console log. I've been clicked. Oh, so when I refresh that, click that, I can say I've been clicked. And reading documentation. JSON placeholder. I can see how I go about getting a GET request or doing a fetch to a GET request. And I can do this right here. Again, fetch is a type of promise. Fetch is a built-in, it's an API method that I can send HTTP requests to different URLs or different APIs or different whatever. So here I'm doing a fetch request. So I'm doing a GET request to this placeholder. I don't want to do to-dos. I want to do albums / is it photos? I don't remember. Cool. So I actually want to go there. And this is a promise. So I can do dot then, and then I can do, I'm just gonna do all this on a different line. So when you do a what's it called? A fat arrow function that looks something like an argument gets passed in and then there aren't any curly braces and it just console logs whatever. This part means it immediately returns this console.log. But if I want to do other item here, do other logic in here, I will need to add the curly braces. So essentially, if this function is multiple lines, I'll need to add these curly braces. So I'm just going to console log the response here. So if I do that, so there I've got that response. So this is what's actually being responded to me. Now I need to turn that into that response into JSON, which or convert it from JSON into something that I can use, such as like a JavaScript object instead of just a JavaScript object notation. Then I'm just going to console log like so. So if I click me, see what's going on. Why didn't it work? So get photos. All right. Line 9. Dot data. Dot then. That's weird. All right, so I do get everything, the response back. So that's what's actually being responded back. Why isn't it showing up in the console though? Does anybody know why? Photos.
You might have
Oh.
to await the response.
I think I actually have to do that. Hold on, let's see.
Return it.
That's why I'm an idiot. So here, because I'm not explicitly returning anything, then when it gets the data, it's like it doesn't know what data is. So I'm not returning anything. Again, if I were to do this all on one line, I would not need those curly braces or even the return statement, because it just says take that response and immediately return it. So I'm able to see that all 50 albums. Now I can do something with that data. Let's say inside of my, here I do that like do an ordered list and do ID equals list. Now here I can create a function, say like create album info, and that takes in an individual, or takes in, I guess, all that data. And then it loops through, so data.for each data. So I guess it would be an album. It's been a while since I've done JavaScript. All albums. Or I'll just say albums. Albums. I take each album and I'm just going to console log the album just to see if I'm doing this correctly. And now I'm going to do create album info and pass in the response data. I might have to move this up above that. So let's just see. So if I click that, there we go. We've got all 50 different albums. Now I don't remember off the top of my head how to create elements in JavaScript, I guess HTML. So this is where I create those nodes. So I'm going to grab that. Instead of console logging each element, I'm going to create an element. I can create an image element if I wanted to, or I can create a paragraph. And then the text node. What data do I want to grab? I can grab the album. I'll grab like the title right here. So I'm going to add the title here as a paragraph. And then document.get element by ID list. I think that should do it. Oh, album.title. Like so. I think that should do it. So if I refresh it, I can click that. And now I get all the titles. I could say title, string interpolation. There we go. And that's all the titles, all 50 titles. I can make that oh wait, I wanted to make it, I guess I can make it a list item. Like so. So that's how you can create grab data from the items. If you wanted to grab data, if you wanted something to load immediately, you can just run that on the onload window, HTML, JavaScript. So not onload. Is it just window? So right here. If I didn't want to click that, I can say like load data. And instead of this on click, I'm just gonna call this let load data equals that. And now if I just refresh that, I don't even have to click it, just loads it immediately. And you can see that it loads it because if I refresh it, comes down here, it immediately executes that API. Any questions on APIs and incorporating them in your like a vanilla JavaScript? We could talk about async awaits, but async await, but we'll talk about that another time. Some people think it's easier. Some people think it's more difficult. But yeah. Any questions? Did I lose y'all? Who's not paying attention?
I'm here.
You're not paying attention?
No, I'm here.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Cool. All right. So with that, we do have several or an assignment. So your assignment for tonight, you're going to get in teams of 3 and create a little application using some APIs. So I highly encourage you to look for other APIs, not just these. So create an API with a front end with some JavaScript that loads, or you can search for cocktails and click a button and it extracts from the search bar and you can load that into your API to grab, cocktails. So yeah, I use at least 2 APIs. So like a cocktail finder, as well as like a food finder or whatever. Any questions on what I just showed you? I'll upload this code to GitHub and link it as well. All right.